The city had gone silent before the first blow was struck. It was one of those rare silences that had nothing to do with peace and everything to do with the tension of a storm about to break. Cain Marko, the Juggernaut, walked through the streets as if the world itself had no choice but to move aside. Cars crumpled under his boots. Pavement cracked where his heel struck, and behind his eyes burned the crimson energy of Cyttorak, an unshakable truth carved into the universe. Nothing stops the Juggernaut. He wasn't here for conquest. He wasn't here for greed. He was here because the spirit of vengeance had called him out, and Cain Marko was never one to ignore a challenge. Johnny Blaze sat upon his hell cycle at the far end of the street, the air around him shimmering with waves of heat and the scent of brimstone. His skull burned with an eternal fire, the flames dancing in quiet defiance against the towering shadow of the Juggernaut. Ghost Rider did not flinch. He never did. Cain Marko, his voice was the growl of a furnace and the hiss of damnation. Your sins overflow. You've crushed, destroyed and slaughtered without remorse. The weight of those souls calls for reckoning. Juggernaut smirked, his voice deep and carrying the vibration of a landslide. Reckoning? You think you can judge me, demon? I walk the path given to me by Cyttorak. I am not a man acting of my own whim. I am his hand, his unstoppable will. My sins are his decree. Judge him if you dare. That was the seed of the debate, one that would cut deeper than steel or flame. Ghost Rider was not merely a fighter, he was an arbiter. He punished the guilty because he believed guilt was absolute, a ledger written in the soul. But Juggernaut argued that his actions were not entirely his own, that his path was determined by a power far older than any human morality. The penance stare, Ghost Rider said, shows you the truth of yourself. No god, no demon can erase that. You chose to be Cyttorak's champion. You chose to take the gem. Juggernaut took a slow step forward, and the earth shuddered under him. And what of you? You chose to bind yourself to a demon. Every life you've taken in that form, every soul burned in hellfire, is that purely vengeance, or are you another puppet of a greater will? If I am guilty, you are guilty twice over, for you claim to serve justice while serving the will of a devil. Ghost Rider's fire flared hotter, but he didn't move. The words were not false, and he knew it. His mission came from a higher, or darker, power. The spirit of vengeance did not ask for permission. It demanded obedience. The two stood there, locked in a philosophical standoff that weighed more than any punch they would throw. Cain Marko, Ghost Rider said finally, I don't care whose hand moved you. I will burn the soul that stands before me, if it has wrought evil. Juggernaut laughed, a sound that cracked the air. Then prepare to learn that not all souls can burn. The people had long fled, but from alleyways and rooftops, hidden eyes still watched. They saw not just two forces of destruction, but two philosophies colliding, one rooted in unstoppable motion, the other in unbreakable moral conviction. The Juggernaut was the embodiment of inevitability, power without pause, will without hesitation. Ghost Rider was the embodiment of consequence, the bill collector of the cosmic moral order. And yet here they stood in a paradox. Could consequence stop inevitability? Or would inevitability crush consequence before the reckoning could be delivered? There were truths neither would speak aloud. Ghost Rider knew that Juggernaut's power wasn't just brute strength. Cyttorak's magic rendered him resistant to the very kind of soul-flaying hellfire that Ghost Rider wielded. Juggernaut knew that Ghost Rider's resilience was no less terrifying. To destroy him would require breaking more than a body. It would mean extinguishing the wrath of a demon. But philosophy has a way of breaking when the time for words is over. Juggernaut rolled his shoulders, the air vibrating with the power thrumming through his frame. Ghost Rider gripped his chain, hellfire licking the steel links like serpents eager for prey. The distance between them was about to become meaningless. The And when it did, only one truth would be left standing. Juggernaut took the first step, and the world shook. The second step was faster. The third was a charge, and then the street itself became his weapon. Ghost Rider ignited the ground in a wall of hellfire, but Juggernaut plowed through it without slowing, the flames curling harmlessly around his enchanted frame. Ghost Rider swung his chain, the links glowing white-hot, and it wrapped around Juggernaut's arm. The rider yanked with supernatural force, trying to pivot the giant's momentum. Juggernaut barely tilted, then ripped the chain apart with a single jerk. Ghost Rider lunged forward, both hands gripping Juggernaut's helmet, trying to lock eyes for the Penance stare. But Juggernaut slammed his head forward, the impact cracking concrete for blocks. The rider flew back, rolling across asphalt, the fire from his skull trailing like a comet. Rising instantly, Ghost Rider hurled a concentrated blast of hellfire that burned not the flesh, but the essence within. Juggernaut staggered for the first time, the magic clawing at the edges of his soul, but then Cyttorak's crimson glow flared, and the fire dispersed as if swallowed. "Told you," Juggernaut growled. "Not all souls can burn." Ghost Rider's cycle roared to life, the flaming tires carving molten lines in the street as he sped toward the unstoppable force. He leapt from the bike, spinning the remaining length of chain, and struck Juggernaut across the chest. The blow cracked the sound barrier, the heat distorting the air, but Juggernaut absorbed it and caught the chain mid-strike. With one pull, he dragged Ghost Rider into a titanic punch that launched him through the side of a building. Ghost Rider climbed from the rubble unfazed, fire roaring higher. He conjured a storm of hellfire chains, dozens of them wrapping Juggernaut from every angle, pulling tight until the unmovable titan was bound. The rider's voice thundered, "Look into my eyes, Cain Marco, and face every life you've destroyed." For a heartbeat, their gazes locked. The Penance stare lashed out like a spear into the red glow of Juggernaut's soul. Ghost Rider saw rivers of destruction, screams without end, but he also saw something unexpected, the towering presence of Cyttorak, shielding Marco's soul like a fortress wall. The pain Ghost Rider delivered was diffused, absorbed into that ancient inhuman will. Juggernaut grinned, his voice resonating with Cyttorak's own. "Your stare means nothing here." With a surge of power, the chains shattered, exploding outward in a wave that sent Ghost Rider flying through a dozen cars. Juggernaut advanced, each step a drumbeat of finality. Ghost Rider tried again with hellfire, with blows, with the fury of a demon unleashed, but every strike only slowed Juggernaut for moments. Finally, Juggernaut's hand closed around Ghost Rider's flaming skull. "You can't stop what was never moving toward you in guilt. I am motion, Rider. You are judgment, but judgment only matters to those who can be judged." With a roar, Juggernaut hurled Ghost Rider so far that the horizon swallowed him. The rider landed miles away, broken in body but not spirit, already beginning to reform. Yet the battle was over. Juggernaut stood alone in the street, unshaken, the debate settled in the only language both understood. Consequence had tried to halt Inevitability, but Inevitability marched on, untouched, unrepentant, and victorious. The city would remember this clash, not for the destruction, but for the truth it revealed. Some forces are beyond judgment, and some wheels of destiny roll forward no matter what fire tries to consume them.